Hey guys, Epic Gamer 2000 here, and I only play the coolest games out there. Like Mario? Come on! If it ain't M, I'm not playing them. Look at this kiddie game over here.
Banjo Kazooie is often revered as one of Rare's greatest titles, as well as the height of the collectathon genre. It definitely had a rough development though, going through multiple genres as well as a console transition. Soon after the release of Donkey Kong Country 2, a team at Rareware decided to work on a new adventure IP called Project Dream. This game looked nothing like Banjo Kazooie, as it was on the SNES and was about a boy fighting a pirate crew. After a few months of development, the game was turned into a platformer. The team also thought the boy looked too generic and decided to replace him with a bear, later named Banjo. And what's a bear without a bird? Kazooie was added as a means to allow Banjo to double jump and sprint. In 1996, the Nintendo 64 was showing the potential of 3D games, and Rare decided it would be best to scrap Project Dream and make a 3D platformer starring Banjo. Development went pretty well afterwards, but the game wouldn't be ready for its scheduled holiday 1997 release, and so Banjo was pushed back and Diddy Kong Racing took its place.
Finally, in the summer of 1998, Banjo Kazooie came out to critical acclaim and pretty good sales. Now you'd probably expect me to play this version of the game. Nope.
On September 24, 2002, Microsoft bought Rare, as they were never directly owned by Nintendo, which is really strange on Nintendo's part, as Rare had been making Donkey Kong games, and they practically dominated sales charts. Alas, the bear and bird remained dormant for a few years, before appearing again in Banjo Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, and that was certainly a mixed bag. 2 weeks after Nuts and Bolts' release, remastered editions of Banjo Kazooie and its sequel, Banjo Tooie, were put on the Xbox Live Arcade, and that was the version I played through, on the Rare Replay collection.
Banjo Kazooie follows the titular bear and bird attempting to rescue Banjo's sister Tooie from an evil witch who is planning to transfer Tooie's beauty onto herself using a machine in her lair that also happens to be filled with magical jigsaw puzzles.
You start off in Spiral Mountain, and it serves as a basic tutorial area, teaching you how to double jump and attack enemies. After that you enter Gruntilda's lair, and the real game begins. The lair is very similar to Peach's castle in Mario 64, since both have pictures that bring you to levels, and a certain number of collectibles are required to get to said picture. There's nothing wrong with it though. It's a cool way to travel to other levels, and there are a bunch of secrets to find. The levels themselves explore lots of different themes, and each one stands up on its own. There are lots of things to collect in this game, but the main two you need to go through the game are notes to open note doors, and jiggies to complete pictures. You can get Mumbo tokens to pay Mumbo Jumbo, so you can transform Banjo into objects and animals that can access certain areas. There are also 5 Jinjos in each world, and once you rescue all 5, you are rewarded with a Jiggy. There are a few consumable items too, which give Banjo the ability to fly, shoot eggs, and become invincible. You might think this is a lot, but everything is near enough to each other, and there'll usually be 2 or 3 items around the one place. Now you're probably wondering what the differences are between the Xbox and N64 versions of this game. Well, apart from the obvious up-res and slight graphical changes, there are a few improvements that make this the best version. The game is played with an Xbox controller, which most people prefer over an N64 controller. The notes and Jinjos you collect are permanently kept rather than being reset every time you die or leave a level. And of course all the Nintendo logos are removed. Banjo Kazooie's story is pretty simplistic, but where the game really shines is in its characters. Each one of them has their own personality. Banjo will be all mannerly and kind, but suddenly Kazooie will jump in with some smart comment about the situation. Minor side characters are really charming, and even the enemies are brimming with personality through the designs and body movements alone. And of course the most memorable character has to be Gruntilda. She speaks everything through rhyme, and she's just the evil witch stereotype taken to over-the-top lengths. The lair is comically large with statues and pictures of her sprinkled throughout, and she sets up a life-size board game to stop Banjo and Kazooie. Grunty's sister, Bruntilda, tells you a bunch of information about her. It just makes Gruntilda seem as disgusting and evil as possible. Of course I think I've gone on about characters and whatnot for long enough now. What about the controls and moves? and I give them a pretty alright out of 10. Next I'll be reviewing Banjo Tooie. In all seriousness, the controls are okay. One of the things that make Banjo unique are the many different moves you can do, from flying to sprinting, but like the collectibles, it never feels like too much. The levels get larger as you go on, and this is fine up until about Mad Monster Mansion. The size of this map, and the 10 jiggies you're supposed to collect, really overwhelm the player, and lead to a lot of pointless wandering, looking for a secret door or a missed area. Getting music notes also becomes really tedious, as you jump on a bunch of platforms just to get 3 notes on a chair, and have to do it all over again on another chair. This doesn't make the levels bad per se, but they can really bore and confuse you in the first playthrough. The platforming in Banjo is smooth, and Kazooie's double jump is really helpful when you make a mistake. Landing jumps is where the problem lies, and nowhere is this more apparent than in Rusty Bucket Bay and Click Clock Wood. These being the last 2 levels of the game obviously have the most platforming, and you will fall many times. The camera just doesn't allow you to see where you want to land sometimes, and as this is an early 3D platformer, the collision can be really wonky. The engine room is a prime example of this, being one of my most traumatic experiences to date. In this death trap you have to jump on rotating platforms and dodge propeller blades, and that is not very fun. If you really like being angry, you can play the N64 version, where you have to get the notes in this section, as well as the rest of the level without dying to get 100% completion. The level after this, Click Clock Wood, is definitely a step up from Rusty Bucket Bay, but it has some different problems. The platforming feels a lot more fair and forgiving than Rusty, but scaling the tree takes a long time, and getting knocked off and being forced to repeat 1 or 2 minutes of platforming can be really frustrating. The level also has the gimmick of being played in 4 different seasons, so that means you'll have to do the same platforming section at least 4 times. Still, this remains to be one of the few bad parts in an otherwise brilliant game. Picking a favourite level in Banjo Kazooie is pretty difficult, but I would probably go with Treasure Trove Cove, with its memorable characters, brilliant level design, and of course, the music. It's hard not to mention Grant Kirkhope's brilliant soundtrack. There's not a single bad song in the game, with each one capturing the atmosphere of their levels perfectly. Grant is amazing at creating a fun mood in his music, and it really shows here. Banjo Kazooie is one of the best platformers I've ever played, only being rivaled by the Mario Galaxy games. And it was also one of the few games that managed to absorb me in its world. It can get frustrating, but it's hard to play this game and not have a fun time.